Hello, everyone, and we're back from break. And we just played Yaga with Jeanmarie. She gave it her uh, her pan-Slavic seal of approval. Oh, I
I do
gotta.
have to say, though, my husband pointed out we have to complain about the British accents.
Oh,
I think
go
we need to
off
complain
again.
more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
It's very strange, especially the Scotsman, for some reason, drinking at the Russian
Yeah,
bar.
what was that about?
That's just the Scottish
It's
people show up
suggesting that the
everywhere.
Scots people are all drunken.
My brother lived in Scotland and drank more in Scotland than he did in America. But
Yeah,
who's to say?
who's to say?
My niece is actually named Scotland in honor of
Oh,
his former home. My favorite and only niece. But
Scotty.
Scotty, I'm gonna see her this Christmas. Anyway,
Love that sweet baby.
love that sweet baby. And for someone in chat who told me to hydrate, I did get like a mug of water.
It's very responsible
Thank
of
you
you.
for looking out for me. All right. But for
Post-Moss
Jean
man.
Marie, I did get a mug of beer. So
Excellent.
Nice.
to honor you. And I think we should get into the interview. But Daisy, you want to do the honors this time around?
With
He's
water
hydrating.
just with
Daisy is
water
hydrating.
Daisy's hydrated.
with
It's what
water
they need
just
most.
drank.
Yeah.
It's so true. With water just drank, I would love to do the honors, which is to thank the interview sleuths, of course. So you might see me and Dom on the show a lot with our guests at various points. But what you may not see are the interview sleuths, the team of people who come up every week with questions based on research from our guests that are from the internet and or libraries. That's about the extent of our interview capabilities, but we always come up with questions that are meant to highlight the guests, highlight their skills, highlight the fun that we've shared with them in our various lives. So if you hear a question that you like, or that Jeanmarie laughs to, or that you wish you had thought of in the chat, whatever it is, don't thank me and Dom. Thank the sleuthing team.
All
Who
right,
are
and with that
wonderful
done,
and gorgeous and fabulous
Intrepid.
and intrepid and,
There we go.
and genius and
Ooh,
and
more
articulate
that's a new
and
one.
detailed and all the things that they are.
Thank you,
They're
Daisy.
wonderful. So thank the sleuths.
Incognito, because they're sleuths.
That is true.
They're incognito. Yeah, if they're out there, folks, thank the sleuths.
You can find them if you tried. All right, let's get to this interview. Sometimes we start very broad with the opening questions and then get more narrow, and I think this is one of those. But that is to say, they're only going to get easier from here. Jeanmarie, first off the bat, why are legends so useful for understanding the limitations and possibilities of memory?
Ooh. Okay, so because the legends that I'm dealing with in particular are embedded in places that have a traumatic past. And so the legends are the lens through which people are grappling with that past experience or past history, because many people did not actually experience it. But even those who did are using the legend as a window onto this, a way to talk about something that is so horrific, that is a way that allows them some protection. One of the things I often say to students when I'm talking to them about legends is legends give you cover. They give you a framework. And if somebody challenges you, you can simply say, well, it's only a story. It's not like I'm saying it, it's just a story. And you can criticize and you can grapple with critical points of your history through the legend, I think. At least I'm writing books. I hope it's true.
Well, yeah. Do you want to go into a little more detail with that, with the formation of Russian identity that you study in some of the legends you study?
Sure. So I'm going to be truthful. I always, well, that's a change.
The sleuths did
I
that probably.
I always said two things. I will never study religion, and I will never study the Russian Gulag past, the prison camp legacy,
Until
until I started studying religion and the prison camp legacy together. Okay, so let's back up a little bit and look at a wider lens about springs in Russia. Russia does not have as many springs as Ireland, but it does have a lot of natural holy sites. They are often springs, they can be rocks, um, they can be caves, but particularly springs are associated with holiness.
Mhm.
Usually it's because a known saint lived there, interacted with this place. Again, this idea that uh, an event or a person can sanctify a place and affect the way it's approached. Um, and the springs that I am studying, I came across by accident, which is pretty much how I always begin projects.
Mhm.
Um, and the other thing I have to say, honestly, is I never thought legends were very interesting in my early years as a folklore. Um, I did not understand the scope, nuance, and range of the genre yet,
Mm.
in my defense. And it wasn't until I heard Bill Ellis and Pat Turner talk about legends that I realized, oh, oh yeah, they're a lot more complicated than I thought they were. So, someone is giving a talk at the University of Kentucky who's a historian, and she's talking about her project, which is based in Novosibirsk, at least partially. She's working with a scholar of the Russian prison camp system, the Gulag, and she's studying children who were born in the gulags.
Mm.
And she says, so the historian I'm working with there, who himself is a child of the Gulag, in other words, his parent gave birth to him in the Gulag, um, uh, has taken me to this holy spring. And she flashes this holy spring, which is right outside of Novosibirsk, where at that point I had been going annually for, I guess, 7 years. And I said, whoa, how is it that nobody is nobody in the folklore community is talking about this? So I arrived the next year with the name of the historian in hand, who can introduce me to the priest, who's kind of his congregation. And I ask all the folklorists, and they're all saying, "No, we're not doing that. No, it's not folklore. It's not a village. It's not folklore." So I went, thinking there was going to be this tiny little bubbling water and maybe a cross.
Mhm.
And what I found was like a whole infrastructure with a parking lot that was paved in the middle of nowhere in Western Siberia. Um, and the legend is captivating. The legend says that the place is holy because of 40 priests and monks that were killed on the site in the camp during the anti-religious past of the Soviet Union. And then I found two others. And these are really distinctive because this is not the tradition of the Russian Holy Spring. This is not what you normally find, where Saint Sergius lived there, or there was a vision of the Virgin Mary there, or the Mother of God, which is what the Russians call her.
Mm.
Um, this is just people who may have been religious, which is important to the way the lay people talk about it, but they're not saints, and for the most part, we don't even know who they were, because if they were killed, there's not records, or if there are records, they've been destroyed, or there's no access to them. Um, but it's what the lay people emphasize. Now, the priests and nuns take a different attitude. They are much more interested in the fact that the camp was there at all, and the camp is a place of martyrdom. Broadly, it's not so much that it was religious figures that were killed. So it's interesting to hear the different views. That's part of my work, teasing out who's saying what and why they're saying.
Daisy, do you
That
want to read
answer?
that? Oh, yes. It might have actually answered two of our potential follow-up questions at once.
Okay.
But Daisy,
I
do
was
you want
gonna
to do
say,
you want to
yeah.
ask that question in chat as she was saying that?
Yeah, so Death Loris asked in chat, is there any tourism to the holy springs? Thinking about how springs are often commodified for their otherly, sometimes healing nature. Also thinking about pilgrimage to the springs as a form of legend tripping.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so one of the chapters in the book precisely deals with this dilemma of tourism to the spring by people who often don't necessarily know the history or know very little about the history of where they're going. They just know that there's this special place that has a holy spring. And the spring is said to be healing. It can heal all kinds of things. The first of the three springs is particularly associated with healing problems with joints, legs, rheumatism,
Mm-hmm.
inability to walk, those kind of things. But I've had people
Like
who were
physical
cancer,
health.
yeah, physical, well,
Mm-hmm.
legs in particular. I don't know why legs. One
Interesting.
of the earliest legends is that a young woman who could not walk was taken to the spring, put into the water, and stood up. Yeah. So that might be why. But I've had cancer patients tell me that it helped them. Uh, there's at every holy spring
Mm.
associated with a parish church. There's always a book of attestations, like it cured my alcoholism. It cured my kidney disease. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
if you just want to you just want to add to the story, and you can ask to see it. And I've asked to see it. Taking pictures of where they what was there, what had come up recently, and the other issue is that all three of them are sites of pilgrimage. So that there are formal pilgrimages from a local city walking to them, or in the case of the spring that is most remote, all the pilgrims get on a train because uh, this isn't really a village that's on a major pathway. It's like in between two fairly big cities. It's named for the mile marker of the train where the camp was. And so it's 513th kilometer. That's the stop you get off at. So they get on the train and they go south on the train, which goes south in the morning and comes back north in the afternoon. So you can spend part of your day at the spring, or you can arrange to spend overnight. They have like a pilgrims
Mm-hmm.
hostel. And so for the pilgrimage, they take the train, get off, and walk the rest of the way to the spring. So it's a walk ride pilgrimage. And my cat's here.
I was
I
kitty
was
in
gonna
the
say
background.
that's only a good thing with our fans. They're gonna love to see a cat.
Yeah. So this is Sonia.
Sonia.
Oh, Sonia.
Now she's
Oh,
behind the
cute.
computer, so you can't see her anymore, but she'll be back.
That's what my cat likes to do. She likes to hide behind things or around things.
Oh, there we
Look
go.
at
There we go.
that.
I see some
Wow.
ears. Oh,
Fantastic.
oh, wow.
Fantastic. What a good
Beautiful.
little
She walked
smoky cat.
behind the computer, in fact, Daisy, to where your picture of her is that you drew today.
Oh, that's so cute. I love
Oh,
that.
thank
We
you.
got bits for that.
We got
People.
133 bits. It should have been 513. Come on, think about it.
Oh, it's so cute. Death
So
Forest has
this
a follow-up. Okay.
just one more thing about this
Go for it.
whole
Yes.
tourism
Yes.
thing. The Siberians have an inferiority complex
Mm.
because for several reasons. But one is that all the good stuff in Russia is all in the European part of the country, not
Mhm.
in the Asian part of the country. And they get dinged with the bad reputation, of course, of Siberia and the camps.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of local pride in the fact that they have holy sites at all, and they have holy sites that people come to visit who come from elsewhere to do this in a way that makes it very much a tourist attraction. There you go. Follow-up? What was the follow-up, Daisy?
The follow-up is just that Death Loris said that they had to ask. She did field works in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and the town really had amps up on the special water, in quotes. They use this narrative about how George Washington used to visit for their healing
Berkeley
nature.
Springs, I know.
You've
Like,
been?
what is with the spring and like the healing nature of the spring, and to call it a spring as opposed to another kind of water formation, I also think is really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Like, why the spring and not just the river? Like,
Or the lake that's nearby.
Yeah.
right, like, what is that? Like, it's
There's-
very fascinating.
The spring is uncontrollable.
Yeah.
So it's magical
That
and
makes a lot
mystical.
of
You never
sense.
know where it's going to, appear.
That makes a lot of sense.
So it's not contained and it's fresh. The number one trope that's associated with holy springs in Russia is that there's a lot of silver in the water.
Silver.
Usually not actually true.
Okay.
The chemical composition of this spring has actually been done by the priest, the local priest, and there is not very much silver. But people will all tell you there's a lot of silver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's interesting.
and the springs also have legends because what the Soviet authorities would do is they would try to bury holy sites, usually associating them with some kind of trash dump landfill.
Interesting.
They would try to block them, pour cement on them, put trash over them. But of course, springs always find a way. I mean, it's the way geology works.
Yeah.
You block me here, the earth is porous, I will come out over here. But people view that as part of the evidence that this is holy, and it needed to be known, and it was defying the anti-religious authorities by reappearing, even if you blocked it with land. So one of the springs that the one I've been studying the longest, which is the first one I heard about, there was in fact a landfill right near it, and that was part of their attempt to get people not to go there. And the priest and the congregation worked tirelessly to get the landfill moved. But as one of my friends who's a geologist said, I no longer go to the spring once I learned there was a landfill nearby.
It's probably responsible.
She said, I'm a geologist. I know how,
I know how that works.
Yeah.
Contaminate things.
How contamination works.
It's like,
well, pivoting to a different part of things you teach and study, the Kentucky World Language Association has had an important impact on language access in Kentucky. Can you tell the audience what this organization is and how does access to multilingual resources influence Kentucky's identity?
sure. I'm devoted to the Kentucky World Languages Association. So when I came to Kentucky, one of my service duties, because as a professor, you may not know this, peeps, you're not a professor, but as a professor, you have 3 jobs. You have to teach, you have to do research, and you have to do service. And service is, things like serving on committees or whatever. But one of them is community engagement. And so I was assigned liaison with the public schools in Kentucky teaching Russian, which is my language. So I was really excited about it. And I made good connections with the teachers. And then within 5 to 8 years, every Kentucky public school that had Russian shut down their program.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, because, Cold War is over. What do you need Russian for, right? So you might take a look at what's going on in Ukraine and
Fascinating
that
that that's the
question.
justification.
Yeah,
But whatever. Okay. Okay, go off, I guess, government.
Yeah.
What the
So that was the end of that job because there was no really person to liaise with. So I became department chair of my department 10 years ago now. And one of the things I wanted to do was strengthen the ties with KWLA. And so I got in touch with one of our alums who at that point was on the board and was about to become the president. And we started doing a podcast for teachers in the state of Kentucky who teach languages. Mainly because a lot of people in Kentucky schools are isolates. In other words, there's not a language department, or even if there is a few people teaching language, there might not be someone doing your own language. And it's hard to get professional development all across the state. So we really got invested in this. And the next thing you know, she said to me, I think you should run for president. And so I did. But so I'm currently the president. My term ends in December. But here's what I tell people about Kentucky. We just had an external review where people come in from other universities and evaluate your program and how it's going. In Fayette County, which is where the University of Kentucky is located, there is a need for 165 languages on a daily basis in public schools. There are 100,000 jobs in the state brought by international companies, largely, but not exclusively, Japanese, German, Canadian, and French companies. We have international businesses that we are known for, including obviously horses, but obviously bourbon. And Kentucky has had a very tough year. We had tornadoes in December that ravaged the western part of the state, floods in the spring that ravaged the east. When Bowling Green was hit by those tornadoes, the number one language needed, most people would say, would be Spanish. No, it was Bosnian. We have an extremely active refugee resettlement program. We have one of the largest Ukrainian communities in the United States in central Kentucky. That I just started
no idea.
Yeah, I just started
like in Kentucky of all places.
In Kentucky.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Daisy.
I just I interrupted that. I'm sorry.
Wait, can I interrupt you, Daisy? Can I interrupt you, Daisy? Virginia Siegel talked about it in her interview. Come on.
Well, I guess that's true.
Anyway, continue, Jeanmarie.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, because Jen Siegel did a great project, which I used from my folklore class.
That's true. She did.
But so language identity and the use of languages is really important no matter where you are, in my view. Obviously, it's what I've dedicated my life to. But people do a disservice if they overlook the diversity of language that's in your community. So we have a huge Somalian population, for example, as a result of the refugee resettlement. And just, you name it, any part of the world where there are people, they're in Kentucky. And so one of the things that KWLA does, obviously, is support language teachers who need professional development and, camaraderie and colleagues, but also support our students who are doing the Seal of Biliteracy. Do you know the Seal of Biliteracy? Okay,
I got a California State Seal of Biliteracy for Spanish.
Oh, so you do know.
I know what it is. Dom doesn't know, apparently.
I know what it is. Almost was
cool.
A priest, 9 years of Latin. No idea what it's like to actually speak a language.
It's a great thing for people to have.
Yeah. So the Seal of Biliteracy basically certifies that you have a certain level of linguistic capacity in at least 2 languages, right? So you can be an American, like Daisy or me, who takes a language and then takes a national test and gets certified, and then you can use that as a professional credential. Or you could be a native speaker of a language other than English and be certified both in that language and, of course, in English. And so it's really a professional tool that benefits people for their work life, and often is a way to validate what it means to be a speaker of another language in an environment where it's not the primary language around you.
I think, for example, mine allowed me in my undergrad to only take 1 upper level Spanish class to count for my whole 2 years.
Yep.
So like in terms of like access to university education, if you're going to get a Bachelor of Arts which requires you to have a language, like I only had to take a single class as opposed to taking it in a quarter system, 6 classes, So that's 5 classes I didn't have to pay for.
And on the flip side, if you want to continue, you have a leg up. In other words, the more Spanish, German, Chinese, you name the language that you do, the more professionally qualified you are. So it allows students to say, I've got this level of proficiency on a national exam. I can start up here. And in my 4 years at my undergraduate institution, I could be ahead of the person who didn't have that opportunity. So that's KWLA.
It's super important, and we wanted to take time to highlight that work because I don't think people realize that like academics do things that aren't like just writing stuff that they think.
They all, like you said, they all have to do service.
But also service that like directly impacts and supports communities that aren't necessarily like folklore related.
It's not all just serving as the director
related.
of undergraduate studies or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like, and that this is a really important project both for access and for community identity negotiation in Kentucky, amongst all these other things. So it's just it's a point of pride. Yeah, totally.
We do a showcase where we bring students to UK. Actually, it can't be UK this year. It's going to be another university, but it doesn't matter. The principle's the same.
Still.
And my main goal for that is not to say you should take Russian, or not even to say you should major in a language, or not even to say you should come to UK and major in a language, although if you do, great.
And if you do come to UK and major in Russian, great.
This is a tool in your toolbox, and the better you are, the more powerful it is. So if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be an accountant, if you have 2 languages, you're in better shape.
Yeah. Very
Even
true.
if it's Latin.
And once you have one, and once you have
if you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, once you have one, it makes all the others a lot easier to kind of wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Like
I started in German.
Right. Like I would say that I'm best at Spanish, but even just like and I've taken like a German for reading class. I will not say that I know how to speak German. Like that's not what the class was about. That's not what my perspective was about. But even just the terminology of learning a language at a faster pace than you're typically taught, like even that is helpful to just know like what the hell a subjunctive verb is. Like even that, like it makes it easier for you to put yourself in the perspective of the language, which then guides you to learn more about the community itself.
True,
and it's just so good. Anyway, everybody should learn more languages.
Yes.
Also, we should offer them in classes, in school, in elementary school, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Stop closing down languages, you freaking ding dongs. Stop spending it on STEM.
I know.
Daisy, I also took that.
One thing I do have to say, Dom, is that if you came to UK to study Latin, you do spoken Latin. We have one of the most famous spoken Latin programs in the United States.
I missed out by going 2 hours north of Cincinnati.
It's true.
Although, Cincinnati, I went there because like they dug up Troy. I wanted to be an archaeologist.
I know.
And then I realized there was no one to talk to, and now I'm a folklorist.
That was good.
Yeah, so lucked out.
Clearly.
Back to more of a serious question. I know you set us up for this like at several points, so I'm glad we're finally answering this question. But what has it been like to become your state's like point person on overnight on global politics, especially like the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
It's been bad.
It's been bad?
Yeah.
It's been really
I'll
bad.
accept that answer, but if you want to talk more about it, go for it.
So, the first 2 weeks were pretty nightmarish. Between the media requests and you have to do a webinar and you have to explain this to people. And then my friends were calling me and I was getting abused from all sides by people like I was responsible for Putin.
That's so bizarre.
Wow.
And like of all the things for folklorists to become like hyper specialized their subject about like unfortunately yours became an occupation essentially. And like
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Continue. Yeah.
So, I mean, I did the media requests and we did the webinars, but then it would just knock me out for 3 days
I bet.
of depression. I think I'm finally coming out. I think AFS did it actually, or
Mm.
the lead up to AFS, coming out of the feeling like I'm in a cave and I can't face the reality that I have to face. Um,
And that's
because it's hard to
so
write about Russia at a
Mhm.
time when it's like Russia.
and it's so important for people to hear the other side of that. Because I think people are seeing, like, if they're reading along and know who you are or are looking for sources in Kentucky, they're like maybe reading your comments and like they're saying, okay, there's a very informed person who knows a lot about this issue, this subject, the people, etc. But they're not seeing that like you are actually a real person
Mhm.
who
Well,
is struggling a lot with like personal friendships and relationships, and like
yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time trying to like get your friends to safety while you're supposed to be like diplomatically answering political questions
Oh
about
boy.
like I can't even imagine. And so that's such
So,
a
I
please.
mean, all of us have friends in these former spaces. I said earlier I studied really East Slavic folklore, so
Yeah.
Ukrainian, Russian, Belarusian.
Yeah.
So I got friends in Ukraine, friends in Belarus. There's ties all over.
Mhm.
But it's different. No offense to my colleagues in history and literature, to be a folklorist. I am in the field. I am with people all the time. And now I'm with people. I mean, I'm not with people all the time because I can't use my visa to go to Russia to do the 2 research trips I wanted to use.
Mhm.
But my entire world is connections with people. I'm not going to archives. I don't go to museums. I mean, that's not the kind of work I do. And so in 2014, when Crimea was annexed,
Yeah.
I became the representative of the US government to everyone I talked to who knew I was an American, um, yelling at me because, the government needs to understand that this is Russia's territory and what's the big deal. And it was a miserable, miserable research trip. This would be 10 times that
Yeah.
because that's is why I'm off social media largely right now. So I make targeted forays in when I need to do something and then I get out as fast as possible. Um, this was from all sides. Ukrainians yelling at me because I study Russian, Russians yelling at me because I'm an American, and my government is doing these terrible things. And I'm like, my best friend in the world in Russia telling me that we had to do this because of the Nazis coming to get us.
Mm. Mhm.
And you
Can't
can't have that
even.
Pause.
conversation on
Yeah.
WhatsApp. You just can't. This is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, thanks.
But
Right.
but I think
Yeah.
you answered the
Take
question
another beer.
I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, where I'm like, why do you call a folklorist for this? Like you said, your whole career is connections, and I
Right.
think that's what we do best. Yeah.
Yes.
Um.
So one of the
Go for it.
first webinars we did, someone was saying something rather dismissive of Putin. I mean, there's a lot to be dismissive of,
Uh-huh.
but kind of basically saying, why didn't the Russians just get on board after the Soviet Union fell? And I said, well, let me tell you what life was like for the average person, right?
Mhm.
Not the person who's now the oligarch, who was already connected and in the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
either through criminal or through political ties, who capitalized on this. The average person um, had a life savings that was wiped out overnight. There was no
Mhm.
food in the stores. Uh, Crime went through the roof because people didn't have what they needed. Pornography was rampant. Everything was falling apart. Uh, I don't know that it's easy to just get on board and know that it's going to be better
Yeah.
when, life is collapsed. Um, and I had a Russian colleague who is an immigrant. She doesn't no longer lives there, who said, "Thank you for telling what we went through." Right?
Mm.
Because I lived it. I was there. I mean, I was doing a program abroad. I was doing my work for my grad program, and Yeah. I mean, I know what it was like.
Yeah.
And we had money. I mean, even as poor graduate students, we had so much money compared to
Hmm.
what the average Russian had. People standing on the street corners selling their belongings to try to survive another day. People just don't get it. Right? Well, no, now we're all free. Came at a very high price. So that kind of voice, Dom, I was able to bring, right? That human side that I
Hmm.
think is very important. Plus, I think legends tell you a lot.
Oh yeah.
Um, I told, legend after legend after legend, and I'd say to people, the audience, I'd say, now you think, oh, it's stupid. Why would you believe? Why would you fall for that? And then we have to go into this question about how legends actually reflect a reality that you've experienced.
Hmm.
They're not based necessarily on logic from the scientific or the Cartesian way. They're based on the logic of what you know.
Yes.
And what you see is my country has fallen apart. Who was most influential in the way the transition happened? Oh, it was the United States. Therefore, they're out to get me.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of evidence that they are,
Hmm.
That's so
even
true.
now.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Right? And I'm not saying that it's all legitimate evidence. There's plenty of it. And so you can see how you can make these conclusions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a folklorist voice. I think it's important.
Agreed.
Death Lorist says, Jeanmarie, we truly appreciate you sharing these experiences with us, especially as like young folklorists getting into like what it really means to be both a participant and advocate for your own communities,
Yeah.
no matter what those communities are, the turmoil that may like come into those communities is controllable and uncontrollable. Like you have no idea what's going to happen in the world,
You
and
don't.
Yeah.
terrible things can happen and beautiful things can happen. And when it's terrible, it's especially difficult to be an advocate and also especially important. And so thank you for doing that work.
Daisy, you want to plug the ad that we ran over break again?
Well, I'd be happy to say, like, if you didn't notice our ad that we made on behalf of Jeanmarie,
Or if you're
please,
watching this on YouTube and you
yeah,
did not see the ads,
watching this on YouTube, we made a tiny URL that is a reference to a document that Jeanmarie, did you make this document, or is it just the most current collection of resources for donating to Ukrainians who have been invaded by Russia? If you would like tangible assistance to those communities, this is a huge master list of different types of resources that you can donate to. I just plugged it in the chat, but Jeanmarie, feel free to expand upon how you came across this list and what the usefulness might be.
So as you can imagine, most of us in the field were, apoplectic with, with shock and, we're far away. What do we
I
do?
bet. Yeah.
So the Ukrainian specialists went to work. And what they did was they
Mm.
went to work with their local contacts and which groups on the ground. So these are all Ukrainian based organizations or, surrounding Ukraine, like it could be based in Poland, designed to help uh, educational causes, refugees, LGBTQIA, um, various groups that are just, minority groups, the Tatars, for example, Jews in
Mm. Hmm.
Ukraine,
Hmm.
um, that are doing good work in the country or near the country. And so they amassed it and then they released it to the Slavic lists, East European Slavic. Um, and it just keeps getting updated as they discover new ones. So you'll see if you look at the list, it'll say a few, or this is new, right? So it's a way to help if you can't go to Poland yourself and work with refugees. Although I had two alums that at UK who did just that and have now
Wow.
formed their own nonprofit as well. Um, and at this point, they're really going to be worried about energy, keeping warm during the winter.
Mm.
So a lot of these groups on the ground will be helping to cope with the cold because what Russia has decided to do is destroy the infrastructure.
Yeah. What was the group that your former students made?
It is called I want to get the right name.
Sure.
Hold on 1 second.
No worries at all. I'm going to plug it in the chat when we come up with it also.
Yeah, because I can probably give you the link. That's not the... Okay, it's called Go Help Now. And what they're doing is they're helping to facilitate, if you can go, what groups you can work with if you're there, but also groups that they're working with that are on the ground that you might want to be able to support. So let me give you the
That's
link.
awesome. I see like a general, I found like the basic website for it, and they have a run also that you can participate in too. So if you can't actually go there, there's a fundraising run, which is great. So if anybody is a runner in the chat and you want to run for charity, which many runners do, there is that also. But yeah, it's a great, it looks like a great organization.
Yeah, they just did one here because we just had our alumni weekend, and Lauren Metelsky, who's one of the two, came back. She did a run while she was here. I mean, organized a run while she was here. They're great.
Daisy, you
thank you so much for.
Oh
yeah, I was going. Let me take the floor here.
Yeah, you can take the floor for a little bit.
I just wanted to thank you for sending that information, because I think a lot of people who are both in our chat and also who are folklorists are not always sure like what to do and where to participate. And sometimes what happens is they just put up a Ukrainian flag and are like, I'm in support of no war, and that's like not a tangible action. And so a list like this is really helpful if you want to provide tangible support, if you have the ability to, and if you don't have the ability to donate or go to the Ukraine or whatever, you can always share this list with other people too. So we encourage people who are watching at home to also share this list.
It gets off people's radar. Right?
Yeah,
new crises.
It just falls off.
And
constantly,
$5 can make a huge difference to people there.
Totally.
Right now, right? We're not talking hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got hundreds.
If you got hundreds, that could save someone's life.
Estimate how valuable any contribution could be. Yeah.
Right. Especially to like organizations of smaller sizes, some that are represented on this list that aren't like, it's like UNICEF is one thing, but these smaller organizations that really do have a direct impact on people's lives, I think are really important to know about.
That was important to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to me personally, the American Red Cross is helping, but so much goes to how running the American Red Cross.
So much goes to like admin fees. Yeah.
Right.
Which I get. They got to make, they got to work. But
not the same.
Cash directly to them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have a question that will take us a little bit away from this. It's our last like quote unquote serious question, and then we have a couple of funsy questions, so we could goof around a little bit and come back.
Because I need something fun after this.
Yeah, please.
This one I think will be a good one. So as a former president of the International Society for Contemporary Legend Research, what sets apart legend scholars from folklorists?
Well, first of all, legend scholars are the best folklorists.
They're okay. Answer.
I agree. They're so fun. Okay. Yeah, continue.
So here's the scenario.
Yes.
Here comes this Russianist who, until recently, thought legends were a waste of everybody's time.
You mentioned.
Yes.
But who, again, by accident, because that's the only way that I ever pick research projects, I meet a folklorist in Russia who that's her field. That's what she does. She studies Russian legends. Mainly archival 19th century. Who? Is it?
Who was that? Yeah.
Her name is Vera Kuznetsova.
Okay.
And so she studies Russian religious legends. So Vera suggests, we've now known each other at this point, I guess.
2 things you said you'd never do.
I know. She suggests, I guess we had known each other at this point like 4 years. She says, look, I'm working on a really interesting project. Maybe we could work on it together. We could co-write the article. You could translate it into English, blah, blah, blah. So we're working on this, and it's on Noah's Ark. It's Noah's Legends of Ark, the Ark. And I'm having a good old time. And that year, for some reason or another, I couldn't go to Russia. I think I was finishing my book. And so I knew I couldn't travel to Russia. But this conference pops up on my screen one day saying, uh, the International Society for Contemporary Legend Research, come to Cape Breton. And I went, there's not much I love more than Canada. And I have a paper on legends.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go. So I go. So I'm there. And it's a small conference. And it's one of those conferences, for those of you who do not know, where you hear everybody's papers. Nobody talks over everybody else. You don't have to fight to decide which panel to go to. And these people acted like I actually belonged from the very beginning. And that doesn't happen very often when you're a Russian folklorist. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen at AFS, let's put it that way. There would be very small audiences and people that weren't very interested in hearing about Russian folk. But these people were like, "Ooh, this is great." And I was like, wow, I like these people a lot. I don't think I'm going to miss this conference anymore. And then, of course, I got more and more into legends, not just because of them and hearing their work, but also because that was the path that my research was taking me. So we started,
made
Vera
so
and I
much
started
sense.
an online digital database project that since has kind of fallen apart. But at the time, it was very exciting. And then I learned about the Holy Spring legends. And then the people at ISCLR are now sick of hearing me talk about Holy Springs, I'm sure. But they still act like they like me.
Aw.
So that's different to me. It's a much more eclectic, very welcoming, not judgy group.
I love that because it's like what you get from like the American Folklore Society and people who attend it. It's a small group among mega institutions.
Yeah.
Right, like among anthropologists, among English literature scholars, among all of these other groups of people, right? And like, so folklorists have this like identity built up of like, oh, we're not anthropologists because XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But legend scholars are fun because it's even more narrow. So you really have a value system that crosses over in a larger Venn diagram than even the people at the American Folklore Society. Because you go there and you're like, okay, everybody's interested in what community means. But the community could be like, I only want to talk about dance and performance theory. And I'm like, oh, well, I only want to talk about ecology and legends and extinct stuff. Like, it's very like, it's kind of like close, but not quite crossover. But at a legend society, because everybody's united around this like perception of the narrative of ambiguous certainty. You wanted to fucking legend. It's very fun because people kind of have the same language, but also the same like, I don't care where it's from. It's an ambiguous, like it's a narrative of ambiguous certainty, and I like that it means something to your community, and that's like a really fun place to be. And because just like you said, the conference is so much smaller, you get to see every paper of exactly equal caliber. Like, you got the people who are the tenured professors next to the brand new grad students, next to the people who are hobbyists who somehow found and could afford attendance at ISCLR. Like,
every
unbelievable.
year there's somebody who comes out of the clear blue sky. I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, what?
Cool.
And then and then the other cool thing is that you get to have a shared experience together. I don't know if you want to talk more about the format of the conference itself, but in the middle of it is like a non-paper day where y'all get on a bus together, y'all show up at some random site together, and you just get to watch people learn and experience something for the first time, which is unlike any... Those are offered at other conferences, but it's not like the whole gang's going. You know, like you can't go to ISCLR without also paying for the midweek event. Like, you would miss so much out of that shared experience if you miss that. It's so meaningful.
Yeah, and it's always so different. You never know where you're going to end up. because it's local people doing the local things that, okay, I'll give a great example. A colleague just said to me recently, I'm bringing in a guest speaker for the department. Where can I take this person to have an authentic Kentucky meal? Foodways, Dom. And I
Oh
said,
my
well,
God,
I know.
interesting.
I said, well, there are three choices, right? At the restaurant level. Obviously, you could take them to a festival where they make burgoo, but okay.
Ooh.
So two really good places that have a really strong respect for local product, really good local meal, traditional meals, etc. But the one that I like the best is it looks like a barn on the inside. It looks like a 1950s dive with a barn around it. And so you got to take the right person there,
Mm-hmm.
right? The average person who's a guest scholar, you're going to assume is fancy and all these things. So that might not be the one you want to pick, but your guest scholar better than I do. So sure enough, when Pat Turner came to do, who's a pretty famous scholar,
Yeah.
came to do a guest lecture for my class and at the University of Kentucky, we took her there because I knew it would be Pat's thing. She was thrilled. We were thrilled. We had a wonderful time. I told my colleague the next day in the department, yeah, so last night we went to this place and I took the guest scholar there. And he looked at me in horror. Did you take any guest scholar there? I said, well, we're legend people. We're folklorists. We like folk stuff. This is the authentic. This is
Yeah.
tradition. And we had a lovely time. Now, the night before, we took her to the other place, which was a little bit fancier,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
More presentable. So she actually had both experiences. But I told Pat that later that day. And she said, he doesn't know folklorists, does he?
Yeah. I was
And
just thinking
especially
it's
legend people we know each other really well because of this conference.
I was thinking
So
it's Pat Turner. Like
yeah, it's Pat
she's
Turner.
had enough uncomfortable conversations with people who believe unsavory things about former President Obama. A barn is not going to scare her.
The barn does not scare
Yeah.
her.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's so true. Oh God. Yeah.
In fact, I
True.
wrote to Pat when the book came out about Obama and said, I really appreciate this book, but I especially appreciate it right now
Yeah.
when I'm grappling
Mhm.
with all of the
Yeah.
sensitive stuff about Russia.
Yeah.
That makes
And
so much sense too, because
yeah.
it's not just unsavory stuff about Russia. It's a very politically charged view that unfortunately is tied to a moralistic identity in the United States, which I find fascinating and challenging for all of these things because people they lean a lot into your morals on the basis of how you describe an event factually or not.
Yeah.
So I think that's I could totally see you two bonding over that and having a kind of a moment shared. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go. And I think a lot of that sense of community from the legend group comes exactly from spending so much time
Mm-hmm.
on buses and
Mm-hmm.
seeing these new things together,
Watching a
as
bee
well as
land on
listening
someone's
to it.
eye and not telling him about it.
I was gonna say, are you saying about the time that I let Ian Brody get stung by a bee?
So I
Because
have to tell
I
you,
guess
my
true.
husband, who was on the bus, saw the bee and said,
Wes betrayed me.
we did this during the little break. He said, yeah, I remember. I was about to say to Ian, there's a bee on your face, when Ian went and hit the bee and then got stung. And Wes was like, too late.
Oh my God, Wes is now wrapped up in this narrative as well about
my
the
God.
bee. Oh.
I did not see the bee until after the screaming.
I maintain the bee was behind Ian Brody's glasses, which he had conveniently flipped up on his head, and I didn't see it because they were behind the glasses. Right. I maintain this fact, yet somehow, I don't know. He had thought he got rid of it, so he should have known.
Yeah.
Wes told him it was there.
Well, Wes
You
was
should've taken
about to
that.
tell him when Ian decided to hit it, apparently.
You know, I think Death Loris and Chad is right. We need to exclusively book guests who were on that bus ride in Brussels who can add more context to the B story.
Michael Coven, come on our
Michael
show and talk about
Coven!
horror movies.
Michael Coven, you were not asleep.
Horror movies. You are not asleep talking about horror movies with me. Oh my god, that would be wild. He saw it.
Can you play Dead by Daylight with us?
Oh, don't even get me started.
Ooh.
Don't even get me started.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Oh,
Funsy
no,
questions.
awesome.
Funsy questions.
Yes, I have
Yeah,
a couple.
okay,
I have a
fun
couple
question.
rapid fire funsy questions for you that are going to be
okay.
really silly. And Death Loris may have to help me with the first one, but I think I can also do it. Your birthday was yesterday, 10/24.
True.
What does being a Scorpio mean to you?
I mean, everything.
Yeah.
I lived in
Okay,
great
tell me.
fear. Yeah, I lived in great fear that I was a Libra because sometimes it'll say Libra.
Yep.
Right, you're
next
right
to
on the
24.
edge.
Yeah. So I actually had a crazy housemate in college who did charts, and that was the reason I really wanted to live with him so that he could do my chart and prove
Oh my god.
that I was not a Libra.
Oh my god.
So Scorpio, I'm sorry, you didn't even have to ask me what your chart was. The fact that you chose to live with someone to prove that you're Scorpio is most fucking Scorpio energy. Okay, but since he did your chart, do you know what your big three are? Your sun is Scorpio, your moon is what, and your rising sign is what? Do you know what those are? If not, we could figure it out right now because there
I
is
used to
a free
absolutely
chart we
know,
can
and
look
now
up.
I've forgotten because once I learned I was Scorpio, I was fine. But for a long time, yeah,
What a Scorpio answer.
I was like, rising was interesting, but I don't remember now.
Well, we could figure that out for you if you want. If you want to know, do you remember what time you were born?
Yes, I was born at noon,
Ooh.
Noon. Where were you born?
Washington D.C.
Oh.
Okay.
Chat,
Okay. Let's
chat,
figure this
figure
out.
that out.
And you can DM me the year that you were born. You don't have to
Oh,
say
we're
it
keeping
on.
the year secret.
Well, we don't have to. I'm just offering that you can do that if you would like to
Ah.
keep it secret.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, let me. Okay. All right. I'm gonna find this out for you because this is like all I've wanted to do.
Can I ask the next question
don't
while you're
ask the
calculating
next
that?
question while I'm looking this
All
up.
right.
Yeah.
Hey, the next question is ISCLR has gone all over the world. Do you remember what city you had the best beer in?
Oh, Brussels.
What was it?
Yes, Brussels was so good. We had a beer
Brussels,
tour.
It was like
had a
one
tour
beer
about
after
beer.
another.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so the beer I really wanted that Wes and I came early because we're fans of beer.
Hey, good place to go.
Is a blackcurrant lambic, and it used to be available in the U.S., but then it disappeared. And so I thought, well, while I'm in Brussels, I want to go. And there's a bar in Bruges that has more beer than you can imagine. And
I can imagine a lot.
So that was a place that had it. And so that was the day I said, I want that beer. Was it the best beer I had? Maybe not, but it was so remarkable.
Yeah.
To be able to get it fresh, So that, but it's a very close second is Prague.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Prague is really good. Beer culture is really great.
I bet.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting because this is telling me.
Star update.
Okay, I'm sorry. Star update. This is telling me that technically you're a Libra, but maybe I didn't put this in right.
No.
There's no way.
There's
no
no
way.
way.
You're
There's
like
no
so
way.
on the cusp. Okay, either way, it would make sense that your moon is a Libra. And it also makes sense because usually if you're really close to a line like that, like usually your moon is connected to whatever's like closest to you.
Yeah.
That would make sense. So, and also that's kind of fun because it makes sense. It's fun to have an academic or a person who's like interested in thinking at having a moon in Libra, because you can weigh a lot of different options and kind of like not take any of them personally.
That's true.
But also like the passion of the Scorpio really comes through and like you want to like both achieve, but also achieve on the basis of like depth and knowing how people really are, how they really are, which I think is true for you and your research. And that's what folklorists are interested in, like at least the kinds of folklorists that we are, where we're very interested in the community piece of it and like how that people make meaning in their lives, which I love a lot. So that would make sense to me. You're really right on the edge though, which is very fun.
What's her rising?
I'm trying to find that right now. I'm trying to read this.
Should I ask this last one?
It might be because I didn't give you the exact time.
That could be why. The rising
12.
changes every 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, if it's
I meant the cusp thing.
Yeah, what?
Because it was actually after. Yeah, it was like 12:36 or something.
Oh, you should be fine.
Okay, I'll put 36 in there. Let's just see if it changes anything. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, Control F the word ascendant.
Yeah,
is what Chad is telling you to do.
I know exactly when I was well, not the exact minute. I know that for another reason. But my dad was having lunch because the doctor told him I wasn't going to be born, and my mom found that out later and was very
Okay, in Washington D.C. Okay,
yes.
Let's see. Where is the rising on this
ascendant?
Oh, your ascendant is Sagittarius.
Ooh,
also makes sense.
Sag.
Also, that's what Death Lorist is in the chat. I'm sure Death Lorist is doing like exclamation point ascendant or something, because Sagittarius is very fun. Sagittarius is very much a sign that is a fan of the underdog. They want people to succeed, but they don't want the heroes to succeed because they're already winning. Anyway, very fun. Very fun. Anyway, we've got
last one, Daisy. Last one.
Questions. Last one. Other funsy question. What is your secret to having a good time at a professional conference? Because you always seem to be having a good time. And that could be an outsider view upon your good time, but you always seem to be having a good time at professional conferences. And so for people who've never been or have been to very few, what's your secret?
Okay, so I'm naturally an extrovert. So being in places with people who are excited about things that are similar to me just is fun.
Yes.
So I just want to talk to everybody about what they're doing. What's going on?
You are literally describing why I chose to study festivals.
Yeah.
That's me.
That was my first thing, right? Rituals and holidays. I love it. I love it. It gives me energy.
Yes.
And then, good
Speaking
beer.
my language. Yeah. Yes. This is as I drink water out of my commemorative Cincinnati Oktoberfest mug.
Yeah.
You were meant to be on our show. Exactly.
Yes.
Enthusiasm enthusiasts. For sure.
So no more fun questions. That's it.
Well,
I gotta tell you, we may in fact have the most fun game for you of all. It might even
we're very excited about this.
It might even be more fun than Yaga. Are you ready for me to explain what we're about to do?
Sure. I love games.
Okay, this is fun.
You're gonna love this.
Not particularly difficult in our opinion. Have you ever made a tier list before?
A tier list?
A tier list. TIER list.
No.
Get into it, Daisy.
Wonderful. This is great. So if you haven't already, go ahead and click watch stream
on Discord.
Because Dom has shared something very fabulous with you, which is a tier list that has been especially crafted for you. A tier list is a kind of game that comes from fighting games that's used for players to rank their favorite characters upon different skill sets, etc. But mostly on the internet, and in particular on Twitch, it's used to rank things of everyday life, which is what we like to do as folklorists, ranking things in everyday life. So we have here crafted for you based on one of many of your syllabi, which also include courses on cognition, on Russian folklore, on language, on just folklore, on many different subjects. You also have listed vampires, of course, on the world's sexiest monster.
Vampires, evolution of a sexy monster.
Vampires, evolution of a sexy monster is a class that at one point you have taught. We went through that syllabus.
Every year.
Every year. Okay. So this show and our chat in particular love vampires. And so we thought it would be fun to have you rank the sexiness of each of the vampires represented on your syllabus in popular culture.
Now,
so
we tried our hardest to include as much as we could. We like 9 as like a kind of magic number on these, but we're gonna try to lead you through it. I know the pictures might be small, but I'll
tell you what they
queue
are.
up everyone, and you place them on a scale from S to D. S being a grade higher than A plus, and D being barely passing. Are you ready to start? This is your unique tier list. This is measured against no one else but your own personal belief about how sexy they are on a scale of S to D. You're ready to start from the top?
Okay.
So we got Dracula parentheses Bela Lugosi.
Oh, Bela Lugosi's pretty high. Okay.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. But I don't want to give a ranking and then have to undo it.
You can undo them. You can undo it. People have done that all the time.
You can go back. Yeah. You can go back. People have done that and said and like changed it up as they see.
All right. So we're going S to D.
Yep.
Backwards. Right?
Backwards. What do you mean?
S is highest and D is lowest.
You can put them in. You can put them wherever you want. Yeah. S is the highest. It's S, A, B, D, C, or A, B, C, D. Sorry.
We've also created created
worst.
F if we have to. We've created double and triple S.
I'm gonna give him an A.
An A, a solid A.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Solid A. That's pretty good.
Next up is Dracula parentheses Gary Oldman.
He's an S.
He's an S. We already got an S on the board, folks. Next up
Gary Oldman.
Next up we have David from the Lost Boys.
Okay, so my opinion about David from Lost Boys has changed. If it were not David, if it were Michael.
See, we were trying to pick which one. We were wondering which one.
We really did wonder.
For David.
B for David. B for David. What would have Michael had?
Oh, Michael would definitely be a
Okay. Oh my God. I can't believe we thought so hard about which one.
I'm not a blonde kind of girl.
I'm dying over here.
I get it.
Next up, I don't think it's on the syllabus, but it is definitely back in pop culture right now, so we need to bring it up. And we've got Lestat and/or Louis from Anne Rice.
It's so horrible. They have to be D.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
We love S's and D's.
We love a firm D when people are.
Oh, we love it. We love an emphatic D.
They're not the right actors to play those characters.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
There's something off about that.
Next one, you might have to contextualize for chat a little bit. We've got Anton from Night Watch.
Okay, Anton is not. So Night Watch is the first Russian blockbuster, it's called. And it was a 3-part series based on a series of novels, fantasy novels.
Mm-hmm.
The first movie is really good. The other two, not so
good.
Anton is not really very sexy. I'm going to see him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put him right in C.
Look at those glasses and that angry face. I don't know. I'm with you there.
Hey,
it's not quite.
Speaking of glasses and angry face, we're going to Bill Paxton as Severin in Near Dark.
But he's smiling. That's different.
No, he's covered in blood and he's smirking.
That's different.
Oh, he's one of my favorite vampire characters. What I call him sexy. He might be a B. If you can get over the violence, the gratuitous violence.
So is he a B above David?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Next up, had to put him in as the wild card. Willem Dafoe as Max Schreck in Shadow of the Vampire.
He's definitely got to be a D. Although he's a great vampire.
He's just not sexy. Is he at the bottom of D? The bottom of D?
No, I think he's probably still more sexy than those idiots.
Take that, city of New Orleans.
Well, take that, Brad Pitt.
Take that,
Yeah,
Brad.
I think Brad Pitt is quite adorable, but not in that character.
Not like that though.
No.
And then we got two that are pretty specific to your syllabus that again you might want to contextualize. So I think we took like the more like a screen grab from a recent movie, and you're going to have to correct my pronunciation when I inevitably butcher this. But from the whole short story, am I doing it right?
Yeah.
Is it the Vige?
V.
V, the V. The
Yeah.
V.
Yeah. He's actually not bad.
The mustache is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean the movie is terrible.
But
Probably,
are the monsters
probably-
sexy?
he's probably up in the B part too.
So
But
where-
after David.
But after
Ooh,
David,
okay.
bottom. And that is
Okay.
can you talk a little bit about that story?
The V.
So
The
yeah,
V.
so the story is basically based on a fairly famous East Slavic tale where a religious guy, often in training to be a priest,
Mhm.
has to spend the night with a supernatural blood-sucking creature, and he usually is able to uncurse her and return her to peace. And so Gogol took that and turned it into a version of the story in
Oh,
which
yeah.
that's not the case.
Yeah.
Which all the religious guys, they don't survive. They don't do well. Yeah. And this is a movie, a more recent adaptation. There's a classic version of it.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
movie that actually turns the whole thing into a kind of a ridiculous farce, and it really is an annoying.
When's the movie, like 2018 or something?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
don't use it anymore because I can't stand it.
I had to put it on
Oh
the
my
tier
God.
list. And then last is a movie I know a lot about, but I've never seen, mainly because I lived with Sean Williams and he did his field work for his master's in Western Ukraine.
Yeah.
So I know a lot about Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I'm maybe a little unclear on who the vampire is in it, but
This is not the vampire.
who is the vampire?
The vampire. She's not really a vampire.
She's not really a vampire.
She's a Rusalka.
Oh.
It's
A
his
Rusalka,
first
okay.
love. Yeah, it's his first love.
Rusalka, I'm not embarrassed to say.
Is
I know
that
from The
like-
Witcher.
I was gonna say, is that like close to a succubi or not? I don't know about it from The Witcher. I forget.
No, it's more like a
It's a water spirit.
mermaid,
an
yeah.
undead water spirit.
Oh,
undead water
okay.
spirit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, as
okay.
long as we're putting like guys with mustaches on this list, let's just throw
Oh
in
my God.
Yurko from Shadows of
But
Forgotten
I think
Ancestors.
He's last in the row.
But that powerful brow.
Yeah. No.
But that is like the most famous Ukrainian movie of all time, right?
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's
Yeah.
actually not about Ukrainians.
It's about
It's about Hutsuls.
Hutsuls, yeah.
Yeah, which is a Slavic minority.
About in the Carpathians, right?
Yes, in the
Yes.
Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah. No. A little bit about that from living with Sean. Do you know Sean Williams?
Yes.
Yes. In Romania right now, I believe. But you know what? I just want to say, we love a bottom heavy tier list. We love lots of people filling in the row D.
I love it.
But standing alone at the top of the tier list is
Wow.
Gary Oldman. And I love
Obviously.
this.
He's so good.
What if we put Gary Oldman white hair and wrinkly? I know we have like Gary Oldman long brown hair,
Oh
cool
yeah.
sunglasses.
Oh, this is after he rejuvenates.
Exactly. Where's white hair and wrinkly Gary Oldman?
Or the version of him as a huge bat with hair.
Love that too.
Oh,
love that
love that.
too.
Very good.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter because ultimately this is the image.
Yes.
Yes.
I look
exactly,
for the sexiest
exactly.
Gary
You
Oldman
get it.
image.
Can you imagine being Gary Oldman, who this is a tour de force role,
Yes.
and you are stuck with Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves as your co-stars?
I know where the
can't
bastard
believe-
sleeps.
Can't believe. I know.
I mean, the one thing about Keanu Reeves, I got to give him props. Jonathan Harker in the book is so stupid, and
Uh-huh.
Keanu Reeves gets that.
Yeah. Keanu Reeves is like the better. He's like the evolved form of like Mark Hamill, where his job is to look clueless and you map your emotions onto him. Sorry, Mark, if you're watching, but yeah. So on paper, Keanu would be right if Gary Oldman wasn't putting on an absolute masterclass all over this movie.
Oh my god! And Winona Ryder's my birthday twin, so anytime she comes up,
Oh,
I'm
really?
automatically dedicated fan. Yes.
Yeah, my birthday twin is Adam Levine, and I'm a little embarrassed by that.
You should be.
I know. Here's the official tier list. Gary Oldman, completely at the top, unchallenged, unbothered, in his lane, moistured, rejuvenated, not challenged.
Buttered.
Dracula,
Not
Gary
buttered.
Oldman, unbuttered, the absolute king of the sexy vampires, the evolution of the sexiest monster.
Sexy monster.
And with
my
that,
gosh.
we've reached the end of your interview. Oh, and
Thank
it looks like
you
Libby
much.
Tucker came in just for
Oh
that.
my god! Just in time, she came in.
Just to
say
see
that.
us talk. Yeah, just to see us talk sexy vampires at the end of your interview. She says hi.
Oh my gosh! That is awesome.
Well,
Wow.
if people want to, go Daisy.
Ladders. I was gonna say ladders. If you don't
Ladders
know,
in the
if
chat,
if
everyone.
You have them, if you don't have them, GG's for Good Game for Jeanmarie, who helped us through Yaga today, who helped us through answering all of our questions about her research, about legends, about
Great interview.
Russia and identity, amazing stuff
About beer,
sexy vampires,
about and again, the part of the Folkwise chat lore, a person who was there on the bus when Daisy let the bee land on Ian.
Oh God!
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Quilts have had meaning on many levels. Making quilts helped me to get a sense of my own space, sense of finding my way, sense of really working my way out of the labyrinth.